Let's make sure everything's working here. Appears to be. All right, this is Jack Donovan. You are listening to or watching PH2T3R, Pater, the Journal of Solar Culture. And I'm here with C.B. Robertson, my co-host as always, author of many fine books. And we're here today. Tonight's show is going to be about, I wrote it as weight training, because weightlifting implies Olympic lifting. And strength training is, are we training for strength? We're bodybuilding, what are we doing? So all those are very, but weight training I think is pretty, it would actually include body weight training. It gets the whole gambit of everything. And we encourage everybody who's watching, or if maybe nobody's tuned in yet, but we will in a few minutes. I'm sure we'll have some guys. Our new Telegram group has been blowing up. It's the thing with modern stuff is that you have to find the platform that the dudes want to be on. It's a real thing. Like if you don't like, I don't know that I could bring anyone from X over to like the stuff that I'm doing. But 10,000 followers on X almost, and I'm like, I don't know that I could, bring any of them to the Order of Fire. But yeah, so we were doing Discord, and now we moved over to Telegram, and that's been, dudes keep just popping in every day and introducing themselves, and like there's conversations happening, so that's really cool. Telegram was kind of a ghost town, and Discord was kind of a ghost town, and so this is a big improvement, and what it was supposed to be.
Telegram is the opposite of a ghost town.
Exactly, yeah, Telegram was going crazy, so it's great. So if any of you, there is a link at the bottom of the screen here, and there are notes there. So if any of you guys haven't signed up for the mailing list, if you sign up for the mailing list, you get the links to the Telegram, and then you can jump in and say hey. And we previewed this show, like what we're going to do like a few days ago. We've been talking about fitness in there. So I think to start talking about strength training, I can tell you guys a little bit about my day, because I did a lot of strength training stuff today, and recovery and things like that. But before we do that, I think we should talk about what I tend to think of the Order of Fire's perspective on fitness training. Because there are so many guys with so many bad attitudes about so many different kinds of training, and so many people are like, well, if you're not doing this, you're a retard. And then you have all these other people who, I don't think people realize what being an influencer, like a fitness influencer, is probably like. And so you have all these guys on YouTube, on Instagram, whatever, and they have to come up with new shit for you to do every day.
And all the ones that aren't gymnastics are wrong. This month. Next month it'll be something else.
Exactly. They have to. They get more engagement if they say that other people are wrong. Because it makes people mad, and people are mad, and then they're up in their comments, and they're 300 comments deep on some offhanded thing that they said. And so they get into comment wars, and they just get paid for that. I mean, I actually got in the last like 20 minutes, I got a payout from Meta. So I mean,
nice.
I don't do this, so I made $7.
That'll be the new way to pig out, is I'll start comment wars in threads of channels of people I like. Sargon of Akkad put out a bad video on Play-Doh, so I got to start a comment thread there. I'll give him a little bit of interaction, but also
he'll laugh all the way to the bank on that, because that's how it works.
And, and good for him. I'm happy to support him, even if he's wrong occasionally.
Seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
And you see that happen when you realize the guys are doing it and they're getting paid for it. Like X pays pretty well if you're up at a certain level. And so these guys with 100,000 followers or more will just drop a wild hot take about whatever, and then people argue with it, for hundreds and hundreds of comments, and they're just.
Speaking of getting paid, mind if I introduce a little bit of contemporary finance news? Apparently, some people put together a deadlift ETF which was basically an index investment fund comprised of companies, only of companies, where there was some demonstrable evidence that the CEO lifted or did combat sports of some sort. And as of the past 4 years, this deadlift ETF has outperformed the S&P 500 by 140%. So possibly we'll leave the commenters to argue over whether this is real news or wishful thinking. But I like to imagine it's real. This will be the recreational belief for this particular live stream.
Yes. Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, we're kind of getting off point here, but the point is that, I had a tattoo shop and a gym with a pretty famous powerlifter / fitness influencer, and I got to see a lot of the behind the scenes things. And not to demonize him, it's just what the industry wants. Like, basically, you have to come up with a new gimmick all the time, and so there's a little bullshit involved. And so, like, obviously these guys, because what works in fitness, and we'll get to more of this, what works 90% of the time is boring. And, like, be consistent and stay with the same program and slowly change your weights and things like that. Those are not sexy. But if you say, like, if you do this one exercise, your biceps will blow through your shirt, then you can, like, that's what people were like, whoa, I want to do that. So all these guys have to do that shit. So much of what they're saying, it's not that it's wrong always. It's just more that it's an exaggerated point to get people. And so people get so religious about these fitness programs and whatever. And if I've been around for a while, and I've been training pretty reasonably hard for, I would say, 15 years. And I've tried a lot of things. Like, I've done CrossFit, I actually got a personal trainer certification for a little bit. I've never really trained anyone officially, but I got it. So I've done that. I've,
So with CrossFit. This background, why is powerlifting better than the other ones?
Are you just going to be our troll? You're going to be it's a troll.
Sorry.
I mean, no, I actually like, well, basically that's the attitude that a lot of people have. Whatever fitness modality or whatever that they like is the one that they feel like everything else is wrong. And powerlifters are notoriously that way. And bodybuilders. I had ChatGPT maybe like a year ago. I had ChatGPT write up an argument, and I had it done in bro speak. I was like, and you do it in bro. Have an argument as to whether power is better or aesthetics is better, and do it in bro. And they're like, no, bro. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter how much you lift; it's how good you look. No, bro. Like, how you look doesn't matter at all. It's how much weight you can put on the bar. And I've listened to that discussion in real life so many times, and it's unbelievably tiresome. But to pull that back a little bit, our philosophy in the Order of Fire is, I think, it tries to be realistic. We actually have a lot of trainers who are in the First Men, and generally speaking, there are a lot of different body types. Men have different body types. They do not have all the same, aptitudes or whatever. I mean, there are guys who are clearly built to run. I've kind of met some Olympic runners in life when I used to deliver exercise equipment, and they look like they're birds. Like they were like Olympic long distance runners or something like that. And I feel like their bones were hollow. Like they're made for that thing that they're doing. And then there's, dudes who, if you got a guy who's like 5'5" and wide, he's going to be real good at, he might have a future in bodybuilding because those guys can get, their muscles can look so big because their arms are so short, and also their leverage is with like powerlifting, you know, like their bench, you take someone who's 6'5" and watch them bench press, and it's like a praying mantis or like a squat or whatever. I mean, like they have so far to go. Whereas like some guy who has a really short range of motion, they tend to be really good benchers. Now you can have a big guy with a really big bench, but he tends to look like you just went into Photoshop and squared that other guy up. It's like some giant, you just unbelievably wide dude. But generally that's the case. It's guys who are built for that. And the same, we all have different aptitudes, and it's important to find what your aptitudes are and what your goals are. Because you know a dude with 5-6 kids probably doesn't need to be worrying about whether he looks like a bodybuilder. Maybe that's what his thing is, and he wants to do that, and that's fine. But that's not necessarily his number one priority. And the same thing, it's like, and I harass guys all the time who do powerlifting into old age. Like, why are you doing that to your body? We joked about it today at the gym, and just because he was talking about some powerlifter, the trainer that we were working with, and he's like, yeah, he's had both hips replaced, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds. Did he have his shoulders done too? Like they're like walking around I'm powerlifting and I'm 60. Yeah, all your joints are synthetic. Like you've had like you are like the bionic man because you've like destroyed your joints. So there's just all of these things, but I think young men should do powerlifting. Like do powerlifting, get some big numbers that you're happy with, try it for a while, and then stop it. Like do it and then stop it, and then go on to something else. I mean, build that strength base, but don't do it forever unless you just really love doing it and don't want to have joints and want to be crippled as an old man.
Do the next Louis Simmons,
yeah, and that's the way it works. So that's basically our philosophy in the Order of Fire, is that I'm really resistant to fads, because there's always a fitness fad out there, but they're usually bullshit. Like if something's been around for a really long time, it probably has better thought of working. And then one of my favorite actual fitness influencers is a guy who I know, and I'm friends with him, and I've met him in real life, is Ajax, Anthony Cortez. And he's on Instagram or whatever, but he's also on X, and is where his power is. And he consistently he's trained with powerlifting guys, but he's a tall guy. He's never meant to be a powerlifter. And he does Muay Thai, but he spent 10 years training people. He understands what's going on, and he's really resistant to fads and says smart things. But we'll be like, oh, this is interesting. Let's see what happens with this. And that's where you really want to be, I think, with fitness after you get through getting excited about all your fads. And I'm really, when people talk about fitness in an extremely authoritative way, I find them extremely irritating. This is exactly how this works. Oh, really? Because most people are still figuring that out. Yeah. There's a lot of arguing about that in all these sports. So when you speak in definitives, like absolute definitives about fitness stuff, aside from track your macros, basic shit, aside from those things, you're probably full of shit. And so whenever people start doing this is how this works. I'm like, does it? So our philosophy is very just what do you want? Where do you want to get to? Everyone should be improving or maintaining a good level of fitness.
Yeah,
but what that means for you and how you get there is individual to the guy. But go on. Yes.
There's an almost in the beginning of the Way of Men opens with this problem of masculinities and the way in which the plurality of standards of masculinity can be invoked to kind of destroy masculinity as a singular concept. And I feel like this cycle, and we might have almost been able to bring this up with fashion and style as well, but this cycle of definitive fads, and you see this with orthorexia and diet as well, can almost risk destroying the concepts of health and fitness as singular concepts. And I feel like what we're doing in the order is promoting health and fitness with a particular masculine emphasis on the fitness side, although health, of course, matters too. And there's, more than one ways to skin this proverbial cat, we were just bashing on fads for a little bit, but there's also like a fun and productive way to do fads, which we've sort of experimented with in like, let's try this thing out. And I think you were right at the end where it's like, there's this tone of definitiveness that delegitimizes these, would otherwise be interesting and sometimes fun experiments. Because oftentimes, as you were saying, different people are different. What comes down to what works comes down to what works with people's individual bodies and what do people enjoy. I like to cycle through different things, but I always kind of revolve around some core exercises. I've got my rocks, I've got my pull-up bar, I've got my running shoes. I've recently started going to the gym for the last 3 months now. Pretty.
I know. I noticed that's a new thing because you haven't been like you haven't gone to actual gym for a long time.
An actual gym in like 3 or 4 years almost. But I've been going probably 4 or 5 days a week. It's been fantastic. It's been great. Still running occasionally. I'm about to enter a new cycle because I'm going to be coaching girls soccer in the fall. So there's a whole different type of exercise that comes down to that. But it all comes down to, I think, developing a more positive relationship with our body. And I think there's a whole contingent outside of the internecine squabblings between the different schools of fitness. There's a whole other community out there. Mm-hmm. And this is not just the body positivity community, but the Redditor community that kind of just loves to shit on bodybuilders as meatheads, as uncultured people, as there's a whole slew of articles saying, oh, everything bodybuilding is right wing. That's kind of a funny Guardian leftist take. It's certainly anti-left. I don't know if it's inherently right wing or not, but
meritocracy is anti-left. So competition is anti-left. Any all the things that really men enjoy and are anti-left if you really look at it.
And so, but one thing I learned in contrary to the sort of Redditor take where like every bulging muscle is a book you didn't read, is a fact you didn't learn, or whatever, as if the biggest science nerds in the world aren't the dudes in the gym looking up exactly how much creatine do I need for my particular body weight to,
oh my God, powerlifters, going to a gym with powerlifters, at least the one that I went to back in Portland area, 3/4 of them were engineers. Engineers love powerlifting for exactly that reason. Like, how can I lift this weight on this plane? For what are the mechanical things that need to happen? It's the sport for them, really. It's very it's very simple and straightforward and mathy, and it's very attractive to engineers for some reason. So they're not dumb guys.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're dumb, but they're not. They're generally
mostly not. It's mostly wishful thinking to imagine that all these fit guys, there must be some compensatory. Yes, there must be some compensatory equality. They clearly look good, so it must be in exchange for something else, which is true. But the exchange is often for crappy video games or dumb other stuff.
Well, I mean, there's all those the TikTok kind of memes of. I started bodybuilding because a girl dumped me and stuff like that. My girl dumped me, so I started bodybuilding, and now I don't need a girl because I'm huge.
But contrary to that Reddit take, biologists have used to believe that the best way to increase your mental longevity, to decrease cognitive decline, was with cardio exercise. And about 10 years ago, the opinion shifted. They said, actually, cardio is really good for that, but resistance training might actually be even better for that. Maintaining a strong body is actually how you maintain a strong mind. It's a overwhelming evidence for this. So the insinuation, the wishful thinking that the body is in some sense compensatory for the absence of mind is not just wishful thinking. It's like the opposite. These things go in tandem together. And I think that's really one of the core things I understood at a theoretical level, but as you get older, you come to sort of see it and experience it more viscerally, more personally, the connection between your mind and your body. You get a good night's sleep. You look at yourself in the mirror. You're like, damn, I look good. You get a couple crappy nights sleep. You look exactly the same, but you look at yourself in the mirror and you feel, oh man, I look like crap,
Right.
and you don't look different, but your mind affects your perception of your body and eventually actually how you appear, because if your mind is bad enough, you won't take care of yourself, and vice versa. Take care of your body. Your mind is a part of your body. It is fed by your body. Much of your neurons are actually in your, not just in your skull, they're in your body as well. It's a one integrated system. And the idea that like the sort of Stephen Hawking ideal of the beautiful mind trapped in the sort of decrepit body. It's a sort of a very Gnostic notion of an identity.
Well, I mean, if you want to reverse that, is that not a compensation? I mean, like
Yeah.
like I could do nothing but read, therefore that's what I did. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure Stephen Hawking would have loved to have fucking played football, but like, or just walked,
Right.
but like, okay, well, that is a compensation, like, and compensation isn't. People have a negative thing with that word. I mean, but obviously,
It's not an inherently bad thing, obviously.
no, I mean, if you can't do one thing, you want to excel at something that you can, and then
Yeah,
so you just
of course.
find something that you're good at. Or that if it's something takes away, I mean, and you do that with training too. I mean, like like whenever someone, I mean, when I broke my ankle in martial arts, I just spent time working on my bench. I mean, that's kind of like what you do. It's compensation.
Speaking of injuries and breaking things, um,
Uh-huh.
one of the subjects that I think is worth dwelling on here in relation to bodybuilding and the mind and the body and stuff is, I mean, you've been doing this a little bit longer. You've been around a little bit longer than me. What's been your experience with bodybuilding, weight training, and your relationship with pain?
Um, did we talk about this or did someone else? I forget when I've had this conversation recently, but I feel like I've had it. Like suffering. Oh, because we talked about suffering.
We did
And
with
suffering,
Buddhism, yeah.
yeah, and like I said, if you are doing it to yourself for a higher goal, I mean, it's suffering kind of, but the real suffering is the shit that happens to you that you didn't plan. Like,
Sure.
okay, you broke your leg while you're doing it. Well, that wasn't, you didn't plan to break your leg.
Yeah.
But if okay, like today, I guess I did a reasonable amount of suffering. I'll take you through my day because it's totally relevant to our whole discussion. One of actually the members of the First Men, a good friend of mine named Ryan, got a job working at a place called Unfair Advantage, and they basically rehab like high level athletes and so forth, and they have a lot of really good techniques for that, or just rehab or conditioning or help them work on something to improve their time on something or whatever their performance, and so he got me in there, and so we were filming some content today. So that's going to be some reels I'm going to put out once I get it all edited up. But it was so the first thing we did today. Basically, they have, and this is something that could be controversial again in fitness, whether it works or how much it works or whatever. But we did this machine called an ARX machine, and basically you can do a number of exercises on it, and it tracks you them all with computers, and it's like a $45,000 machine. Basically, what you do is whatever exercise you set it up for. Like we started with like a bench press, basically, and with cables though, so it was the right range of motion, and it will pull on those cables. It'll let you win by 3%. So as hard as you push, and you're only going to do 8 reps. It's like 2 minutes of working out. It's like a 2-minute set, and you're going to do 8 reps that are very slow, and it will fight you the entire time as you push up, and it'll let you win by 3%. So the harder you push, the harder it pushes, and whatever. And so it tracks like the most weight that you've put out, like your output at a certain range or whatever, the whole way down, and you just watch it go up and down in graphs, and it's fighting you. So you're getting like maximum stimulation on your muscle in the shortest amount of time. So it's excruciating. Like people scream while they're doing it, because it's like basically like you're literally pushing as hard as you can the whole time, but it's not like, it's like, and then it comes back down. Like it doesn't stop. And so like like your veins are popping out of your head, and it's really, really hard. And
does that use AI?
No, these have been around for a while. I mean, maybe it uses AI now, whatever. Everything is called AI, but basically, I mean, it's just. I've actually used one of these machines like 4 years ago. They had it at one of the 21 conventions. They had a guy who had a similar machine. It was like a leg press, and I did it. And yeah, it's this thing that it's just mind blowing. And you're like breathing heavy. It's like it actually trains your cardio in this short period of time, because you're like like the whole time like trying to make this happen. And so I did 3 or 4 I think we did 4 exercises on it. I did a chest press, and then I did a lat pull down, and then I did a chest fly, and then a row, and then I guess we did 5. And I haven't worked out my legs for a year, just because I have thick legs and I'm trying to get them smaller for jiu-jitsu. It's it makes bodybuilders' heads hurt. But like, I'm just like, my legs are big. They're not going to get small. I would just like to be able to triangle somebody who's not a child. So I did my first squat in like a year, and I actually broke the carabiner. I distended the metal on the carabiner because I pushed hard enough, which was cool.
Nice.
I'm like, doesn't squat for a year, breaks carabiner, I'm out.
Go on your head. Yeah.
It had me putting out like 600 pounds of pressure at one point in the thing, which was crazy. Because I've never squatted 600 pounds, trust me. I think my max was like 445. That's the best I ever did. But yeah, so I went through all that today. So that's a new fitness thing. I mean, not many people have access to that. But obviously, the wear and tear on your joints is like way lower than going to the gym 5 times a week. Because now, like basically, the idea is that you go in and do that twice a week and you're good. And that's kind of like a Mike Menser kind of HIT thing. That's the principles that it's built on. Is this super high intensity for a very short period of time, and then you leave. And again, I'm sure I'll hurt tomorrow. I mean, because it was a lot of effort. I mean, once you see the videos, you'll see it's pretty intense. But so that's a new thing in fitness, and that we were talking about suffering. I mean, like I said, I'm like breathing heavy, like my veins are popping out of my head. I'm like, it is hard, but I did that to myself. So I mean, obviously there's some pain involved of that, but we're actually kind of having fun at the same time, because we're trying this cool new thing and trying to see how much I can lift and all that. So it was cool. And then an opposite thing of pain, because then it's like there was more. We did the recovery side, and so then I did. Apparently, there's some benefit to your lymphatic system if you jump up and down on a trampoline for like 3 minutes. So yeah, it was like before all this rehab stuff, they had me jumping down on a trampoline for like 3 minutes, and he's like, "Isn't it weird? Like, when was the last time you were on a trampoline?" Like,
Yeah.
you know. And so I jumped up and down on a trampoline for 3 minutes, and then went into sauna for 15, like a red light sauna for 15 minutes, and then like rinsed off, and then did a cold plunge for 3 minutes. And so I did the cold plunge, which cold plunge is sauna I could sit on all day. I don't even consider that suffering. I enjoy that. But cold plunge I would prefer never to do. But as we joked, I'm like, I can do anything if it's on camera. It's fine. Like, I get in. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna look cool while I'm doing it. But it is cold. It's like there's a level of like, okay, I'm in the thing now, but like once you put your hands under for whatever reason, that's when it's like, okay, this is really cold now. like I can get my body into it, I'm okay. But I get up to here and I'm like fine, and then you like once you put your hands in, you're like all of a sudden it gets real cold. Like your body's like, this is wrong. We need to leave now. So that's a kind of suffering that again was self-induced, and I would say that's legitimately suffering because I really don't like doing it. So we went and did that, and then just to finish out the thing, we were joking about this right before we came online, was that there was also an oxygenation bath, like a hot tub, basically, it's bubbling that you get into, that they're pumping like microfine bubbles of oxygen into, that go into your skin, so you absorb them. And so I sat in that for 15 minutes as part of the recovery thing. And I was joking because about 10 minutes into it, I'm kind of giggling to myself, and like I'm having happy thoughts and thinking about good things. And I'm like, I think this made me high. Like I think I got high on oxygen, like being in it. And it is a thing. I mean, people do that, but
we've known that since Fight Club. Yeah.
Exactly. I didn't even think about that. Like that came into my mind as I was saying it right before you said it. We were thinking the same thing. Yeah, like they give you oxygen because it makes you high. So I got a little high today doing that. But so I just wanted to go over that as we were talking about the self-induced suffering.
Yeah.
And then there's long things of suffering because bodybuilders put themselves. It's not the bodybuilding because that's fun. Like pushing weight is fun.
But the starvation.
If anything, it's tedious. Like after a while, it gets boring. But your narrative for it. Everybody has this narrative for it. Like you have your favorite songs that you have to, whether you're a dude who likes fucking metal or whatever you listen to while you're doing it. And there's some gay dude in Los Angeles doing it to like Cher or whatever, and he's like, I just want to be loved. And but he's lifting more weight than you, so whatever. And so I mean that the lifting part, I mean, think it can be suffering, but it's kind of also fun because it's active. Bodybuilders know a different kind of suffering because the prep that they do is it affects their brain as it gets to the end of it. Like they get depressed. They're like, I mean, because to get down to the low body fat that they go on stage on, I mean, they're dieting for months. They're in a caloric deficit for months and months, and it takes a lot to get down there. It's a lot of discipline. It's a lot of not doing things that you want to do. Obviously, everyone wants to eat what they want to eat, and they're eating bland, pretty bland food. It's all about the numbers. And then, I mean, when I've talked to Ethan about it, he's talked to some bodybuilder guy. He's like, yeah, he told me he ate nothing but tilapia for like 2 weeks. Like at the end, like it's just,
Jeez.
like, I mean, it gets intense because they're trying to get that last little bit of fat off of their ass cheek, like that, so they can see the striations of everything. And so there's a lot of suffering involved in that because it's long suffering. It's
Yeah.
like a long torture that they're doing themselves. And like when my bodybuilding coach went through his process, um, I mean, you just all of a sudden you couldn't really get in touch with him, and he really wasn't there. Like he wasn't mentally there because they're just
Yeah.
faded out that last month. All they're thinking about is that show and what they're going to eat as soon as they're done. Like it's a very grueling process, and so I think that
Jeez.
they really know a lot of long suffering, and I'm sure like that there's something similar to like maybe fight camps with martial artists and things like that they put them through a lot,
Yeah.
um, a lot of hard training.
I ask about pain,
Hmm.
again in the context of the compensatory, or maybe not so compensatory, relationship between the mind and the body,
Right.
because Scott Adams was speculating just today about Elon Musk and how Elon Musk seems to have a very high pain tolerance. And he meant that in a social context, not
Right.
necessarily in a physical context. But he's like, he was speculating maybe a certain amount of pain tolerance, a certain degree of comfort with suffer, or not comfort, but tolerance for suffering, is necessary to even be able to think properly. Um, because the what social pressure is pain,
Mm.
is basically pain, and people give in to um, when people give in to social pressure, they're basically giving in to pain, and they're saying uncle, and they're tapping out, I don't want to feel this stress anymore, so I'm going to go with the consensus. And
For
so,
sure.
like, on the flip side of that, you see, as we went over, Socrates, and the trial and death of Socrates in the Republic, the the sort of mythical model of the thinker and the philosopher
Hmm.
is also the man with a nearly superhuman tolerance for pain, who could stand out in the snow barefoot with very little clothing on, um, who could drink copious amounts of alcohol without getting drunk. But that tremendous control of the body was associated with control of the mind. And we've got a lot of comments scrolling by that are worth reading. But
Okay.
well, first, O52G, we need to read Bubble Bath to get yoked. Hell yeah. Um, but Mike
It
Ronan,
was there were bubbles in there too. Was I joked about that before I got it. I'm like, is it a bubble bath now? Like, but yeah.
but Mike Ronan is here quoting. He has a few good comments here, but quoting Seneca, he says, "We treat the body rigorously, so it will not be disobedient to the mind." Um, but also perhaps the mind is not disobedient to the body. These two things go together in that regard as well, and just that kind of, so much of solar idealism is about trying to create a positive vision,
Right.
and in order to have a positive outlook, it's important for your body to be in good shape. There's no sure path to having a negative view of the world and of other people than to let your body atrophy, and you will project your own sensation onto the world. And I was just reminded of this night before last. I went for a decent long, slow runs are like a kind of masochistic form of pleasure. They're very painful and also very enjoyable if you do it long enough. But it's like all of the world around you feels wonderful when you're running, and you're in intense pain. You run through like 4 side cramps, and you're like, I am ready to get back and be done with this, but I've still got another mile to go or whatever. But the world just feels awesome. It's this almost euphoric sensation, and this is consistent with runners. Um,
Mhm.
I think anaerobic, powerlifting. There's a much different kind of euphoria going on
Right.
when you get that, squat back up off the ground. Um, you know, it's a very positive feeling of the world, and so I think taking care of your body is not just important for your cognitive abilities, but but also for your sort of emotional and sort of spiritual relationship to the world. And I mean spiritual in the broad, like broadly positive or broadly negative sense. And
yeah, I mean,
and there's also this could be a whole other sort of sub conversation within this subject. It also affects other people in the aesthetic domain. People will joke about the shopping cart ethical test. Does the person return their shopping cart after shopping, or do they leave it in the parking lot? It's like, well, that's a question about maintenance of the commons. Do you do the bare minimum to assist in the commons? Well, the primary way that we experience the commons is not with shopping carts, it's with other people. How do other people present themselves to us, and how do we experience other people? If we are surrounded by fat, ugly, negative people, and fat, ugly, and negative go hand in hand, or mentally ill in other ways, no amount of put back shopping carts is going to undo the negative experience of the commons you create by doing that. So being fit and more attractive than you otherwise might be if you were more lazy is actually more of a shopping cart test in the public sense than the shopping cart test is, I would argue.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue about the shopping carts. Because I am the guy who is like, you suck, you piece of shit, and grabs the shopping carts and puts them back for them. But I'm not always that guy, but sometimes I am. Like, you piece of shit. And I'll take it back myself. I also picked up dog shit in the middle of somebody else's dog shit in the middle of the sidewalk the other day, because I was like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And then I thought for a second, I'm like, it might be an old lady who can't fucking bend over. But still, it's as you said, and I find this the case often. We've talked before, and I agree with this, that sick bodies do produce sick thoughts. There's something to that, and as everybody jokes about the phenotypes or whatever on certain sides of the spectrum, I'm like, who wrote that post? Yeah, that's pretty much what I thought. That thought comes from that kind of person. The person who looks like that produces that. That's not always the case, but you can rely on it about 80% of the time.
It's a good pattern. The
stereotype is real. I mean, it's like so there's that, and I've also talked in the past, like when you have a different physical appearance and you look like you're physically fit, people do react to you differently. And so that changes your perception of the world, and your actual reality changes.
I had that experience today. I was with my coworker. We were stopping by a Safeway before we went to a job, and I asked one of the Safeway employees if they had a public restroom. And I was in my company shirt. I had my journeyman card on, shaved, shirt tucked in, and everything. Our shirts are pretty professional looking. They're not like the just raggedy orange commercial. It was like more nice service. And the employee at Safeway said, well, no, we don't have a public restroom, but I'll take you back to the employee restroom. So he took me back to use the employee restroom. And as I'm walking out, and I, buy something because, that's what you do when they let you use the restroom.
Right. It's like a shopping cart thing.
They were, right. But like, as I was walking out, the same employee was in the middle of telling another customer, no, this is not a public restroom. You can't come back here. And it was a guy he was a little bit overweight. He has this ragged shirt, might have been homeless, might not have been homeless, but was different appearance, different outcome. And it's like the Mad Men scene where John Hamm says, is told, you can't go out there. And he says, you can't, as he puts on his jacket and walks out and is fine. Because of how he looks. And there's an instinct among a certain type of person to say that's unfair. And I think that instinct gets to the heart of what you were saying before about fitness and hierarchy being inherently, if not right wing, then at least anti-left in its current form. It's like the fairness argument holds no bearing on reality. It has no weight against.
There's nothing fair about reality.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's why, like, people who don't understand that don't understand the world, and therefore they shouldn't be allowed to like make decisions. Like if you don't understand that the world, that life isn't fair and it never will be, you have the mind of a child.
Which is why Unfair Advantage is a fantastic fitness brand name. It's stuck out before. That's fantastic. I'd like an Unfair Advantage. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. I mean, because that's what you want. Like as my old buddy always used to say, and many people say it as well. Like, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Just if you're gonna cheat, make sure you still put the shopping cart away, though.
Yeah. Well, you're just gonna try to get one up on somebody, and that's what winning is. I mean, like I said, the powerlifter I knew. I mean, he's like, the whole history of powerlifting is dudes trying to figure out how to cheat. Apparently he was telling me that they used to like actually, a lot of the rules that they have in competitions are because of dudes cheating, which that's just rules generally. I think people make rules when they realize there's a problem, and he was saying that there's stories about these guys putting tennis balls behind their knees to get them up out of the hole with squats, like wrapped under their wraps, like to get the elasticity of the squat. Like people have tried that apparently, or something like that, like some kind of like rubbery ball to like bounce back up. But tennis balls actually sounds about right. And I know that person, who I've not named, so I can say, had someone make a singlet that was loose in the back, so they wouldn't be able to tell if his butt came off the thing during bench. It basically like just sew my singlet really loose in the back so that the fabric will stick to the front in case my ass comes out. I mean, like that's like the history of that kind of sport, And then I promised, we joked about it in, I think, the leadership forum. I think we were talking about it, but then there's the whole thing. I won't. Like I said, there's a good sport for everyone to try, and it's okay to try things. But there's geared powerlifting, which is like a whole different thing. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Not gear as in like, but like gear as in there are powerlifting suits. That's actually a category of powerlifting. A lot of people don't know that, but there are powerlifting suits that you can get into that are basically big rubber bands. They're giant rubber band suits
I think I've seen those.
You can strap into them, and then you can't basically move because there's so much pressure. And then they put something in it, and then there's like you can lift like a ridiculous amount more weight with these suits on. There's like squat suits. I've gotten into a squat suit. It's painful. It like gives you like purple welts on you. There's so much pressure as you get into it. It's painful. I had to like hang into it. Like I had to like get into it. Like I get my legs in, and then you hang it up to a bar, and then just kind of sink, like bounce like into it to sink because it's so tight. Then it helps you like lift more weight. And there's a whole category of powerlifting that is assisted powerlifting or geared powerlifting or whatever they call it. But I mean, obviously the weights are different and the records are different and all kinds of stuff like that. It's a whole other sport. People make up all kinds of crazy sports, and they're basically
when you said suit at first, cheating. I thought of like Elysium style like bionic arms and stuff.
Well, I'm why would they not also have one of those? That's like that would be like just. I mean, these are engineers. A lot of these guys. I mean, they would love that shit. Why not? Yeah, it's a whole area. But yeah, do we have more comments we should hit on?
Oh yeah, let me read through. McTubis opens up, gents. Mike Ronan, evening man. Alwa says, yeah, you're pretty strong, but can you lift the several billions of tons that comprise the mass of the sun? Haven't tried. So I'm going to say probably yes, but we'll have to
Probably yes. Good answer. Yeah.
Mike Ronan says, I've been boringly consistent for 50 plus years now. It works. Still strong at 64. That's nice. Freaking awesome. Goals right there. Paul Osborne says, is there a method of accountability within the Order of Fire when it comes to physical fitness?
Okay. There is. We have something called the lightning path. And that's just one, like, we did a baseline program. Like, we had some of the trainers get together and come up with a program. Like, here's something that we think is reasonable. Like, if you're trying to lose weight, here's a basic workout. But it's more, we use it basically for people to track their macros. Like, there's a handful of guys that post their screenshots, because I found this was helpful when I was working with my bodybuilding coach, because it keeps you a little bit more honest than just saying you hit your numbers. I did screenshots of my macro tracking app, and we have a handful of guys in the First Men who post their macros every day. I'll do it when I'm cutting for real, and then I'll do progress pictures every so often. But a lot of people right now, I'll just chime in. If my weight's where I want it to be, I'll just chime in with my weight. Here's what I did. But like the guys who are actively like cutting or doing something like that, they'll post their screenshots of their macros every day, and that provides some kind of accountability. And as far as the Order of Fire, we can do all kinds of things. It just depends what people want. People always say they want accountability, but then they kind of mostly don't. And so, but there are people, because like I said, we do, like, everybody has different goals. Early on in the order, we had this guy who was a bodybuilder, and he actually just called everyone fat because he was a bodybuilder, and bodybuilders always think they're fat, and they also think everybody else is fat because it gives you like bad body dysmorphia. So he's just calling dudes who were normal guys, who were dads and whatever, had a lot going on in their lives, fat every day, and it was just like, you need to go. Eventually, it was very negative, because not everyone's going to have the same goal. But at the same time, if you said you wanted to lose weight and 6 months later you're the same, like, something's really not stacking up there. But the thing is, people either want to have someone assigned to them to give them accountability, or they have to know someone. Like if Chris said, Jack, you're kind of fat. I mean, you've never really been fat. Why are you so fat now? We were talking about fitness, but you're kind of fat. Like, if Chris said that to me, we've known each other for like at least 5 years, probably more. And I'd be like, oh, okay, Chris. All right. Yeah, I might take that seriously. But I don't need some dude I just met telling me about my life.
I think it's
yeah. So I mean, it's you have to have some history with people. I think men accept accountability a lot more with men that they respect, or if they paid them, or if they had like a guy assigned to them. So there's opportunities for that there, aside from the lightning pass, but it has to be I think probably in the Solar Bastards. I think if you said that if you told Vic you were going to do something, he'd probably be checking up on you a little bit, make sure you're actually doing it. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, the Order is a network of guys with very similar goals. So within that network, if you get together with some guys, you can do all kinds of things. You can create a band. You can write a book together. You could come up with mutual accountability, like fitness program with like one or two other guys. There's all kinds of things you can do with a network of guys with similar goals. So
yeah, I mean, you can.
The means of accountability there.
Like, I've thought about this. I'm gonna have to cut hard. Like, I'm going through some stuff this month. I'm like letting myself be in a maintenance phase. As long as I stay right, my weight's about right, I'm fine. And I wanted to gain a little bit of muscle back because I got a little bit of bigorexia. I got too tiny. and I cut for too long, got a little tiny, and so I've been working on just getting some size back. So I wanted to eat a little bit more. But I'm gonna have to do a hard cut here in September because I got an event coming up, and yeah, I thought about being like, all right, boys, let's fucking go. Who wants to do like a hard September? You know, like so. There's opportunities to do things like that. So anyway, so do we have another questions there?
Oh yeah. Daniel Rose says those dismissals of fitness betray a lack of understanding of the body-mind integration and a perverse sense of man as a brain on a stick. What a visual. Yeah. He
Yes.
says, I have also seen an evangelical misinterpretation of Corinthians 9:27 as a disdain for the body as a vehicle for the soul rather than a temple. Well, the temple line, you know, Christians love to pick up and run with that and make of that what they want. I mean, the meaning by Paul is fairly clear as far as sexual morality, but we don't need to get into that. Zaralath Immortal says it's heart, mind, and body. Yes. And heart is practical to the needs of the body for obvious reasons, but it is its own mind. Yeah, and I mean, maybe this relates to the whole training thing. Something that Sober Fitness and Totenkov's lab have said, which I've believed for years, is that more important than your particular program is having an athletic or a fit identity. And that's been my case since high school. I'll go through, 30, 45, 60-day programs where I test something out, like, oh, let's just try doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lunges and see what happens. I'm going to focus on traps, or I'm going to just run a lot, or, whatever the case may be. It's fun to try these different things. But if you have that identity of like, I am a person who does this is part of my life, it's part of my identity, everything else kind of follows from that. And it's really easy, I find, to just sort of, I don't want to say coast, but to participate and to maintain a general degree of athleticism, where you'll mess around with powerlifting, and you're never going to be the best at any of those things. At least if you're me, if you're someone like Sober Fitness, you will get very, very good at bodybuilding.
Right.
But like that identity, I think is strongly associated with what Zaralath is saying is like the heart. If you have that identity, that helps tremendously, maybe more important than your particular program, because otherwise you're likely to fall off the program.
Yeah. I mean, there's, I don't know how to not like go to the gym for like 3 days. Like I better be on a plane or like traveling or something. Like then it's like, then that's when it happens, is that kind of things. But I mean, like, I'll go, like I didn't go to the gym yesterday. Like a couple days a week, maybe not. Couple sounds like a lot. Like I'll do something every day. It might just be like some cardio or some jiu-jitsu or whatever, but I'm always doing something. That's part of my lifestyle. And you realize, like I always joke to people, like once you start this, you realize that if you stop, you'll become a piece of shit. And it's true. It's like you can't just like. I mean, I remember in my 20s, I would, like not go to the gym for like 3 or 4 months. And I was 20, so I was probably like $165 probably in my 20s. But like, I'd just be doing other things and I wouldn't go to the gym. And now that's just inconceivable to me. And that is very much a fitness identity, and just the idea that being active with your body is part of who you are. But there's a double-edged sword to that as well. Because now if it's fitness identity, that's very broad. Most people don't have that. They have there's a pitfall of some of the things we were talking about earlier, is that you have a sport-specific identity, which if you're
I'm
good
a
at
football player. Yeah,
if you're good at something, that's going to happen. And then if you create an injury or a situation that you can't do that anymore, you can't, like that's an identity problem. Like there's depression involved, and there's like a whole shift in identity that has to happen. You have to find something to replace that. And you know, like that's why I joke about powerlifters, because they, once they get to the point where they are lifting some pretty big numbers, then they never want to go beneath those numbers. And actually, your body
Yeah.
just isn't designed to do that consistently for like 30, 40 years. Like, you know, like that. And that's why they all get the fake knees and shoulders, whatever, because you're putting, and also because I hate the word ego because it just means I, and it's confusing and Eastern and weird, but the way that people would use it. But when they call it ego lifting, like if if you feel like you cannot go below 3 wheels, like on bench, if you like once you've gotten 315 and you feel like you cannot go past there, you're gonna do crappy lifts to stay there, like because there's gonna be a day when you don't have it, like even just because it's that day or whatever. So you start doing messed up things to get there, and that's when the injuries happen. And so like there's just that's one thing I've said before. My sister has a marathon running identity that it's hard for her to shake, like because that's who she is. That she's been in the newspaper. She's been like this is who she is. She's been doing it her whole life, her whole adult life. I mean, she's run over 50 marathons, and so anyone who gets a sport specific identity, I mean that's going to be it's going to happen, and that's kind of okay, but you have to realize that it is part of that, and then you have to figure out who you are aside from that.
Yeah.
Eventually, I mean, I can tell you any of the number of the black belts that I roll with, if they were somehow unable to roll ever again, they would have mental problems. Like they would have it would be a struggle for them for a long time, because when you put like 12 years into getting good at something and then you can never do it again, that's like traumatic.
Oh yeah.
It's one of the great joys of their life, and then it gets taken away, and then so I mean, identity is it's great to have like a sport identity, but you just realize that is part of the deal.
Yeah.
Is that some things you're gonna have to leave something behind at some point.
Well, maybe that's one of the advantages of thinking of the interconnected nature of the body with these other things, with your mind, with your relationships, with the public, with the whole domain of appearance. Because a fit body, ceteris paribus, looks better than an unfit body. You are going to have better relationships if you look better to other people. You are going to feel better if moving through the world feels more comfortable. As Joe Rogan says, you drive this car that you get to build. Is it a 4-banger or is it a V8? What's the suspension like? But it takes time to build, and your experience, like when you think of all of the various interwoven connections that your fitness has with the rest of the world, I think it becomes easier to let go of particular fixations, because, control and understanding of your body opens up all these other domains to these other things. Right. Like perhaps getting really heavy into powerlifting will get you into like you'll like, wow, how does like biological chemistry work for no particular reason? And you can get into like long distance running, can get into, you talk about shoe design and totally nerd out with the other long distance runners about that. Gymnastics, body mechanics, rotation, all that stuff. There's so many like doors that get unlocked by any one of these individual things that it would, while it is incredibly impressive and cool to get really, really deep into one thing, there's so much potential for what these things unlock that it would almost be just as much of a waste not to explore these other options too. And when you begin to see fitness as a virtue in the Aristotelian sense of the virtuous man is the man who knows the right action, in lieu of any grand system of right action, as the utilitarians or deontologists try to do. Fitness and health and control and understanding of your body, it almost can't be about just one thing, because your body is more than one thing. it serves more than one purpose.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's nice when there is transfer between some of these sports specific things. I would say like learning to like power clean in like a CrossFit kind of situation. Learning power clean has so many real life lifting. Like that's how you shoulder a bag of dirt is with the exact same movement as a power clean. Like once you realize how to operate your psoas and get that like little leap in there and get that thing up there, whatever it is, if you can, that same motion it transfers into many things. And while you were talking about that, you know, I joke about because my inner like old curmudgeon dad, whenever I see a parkour video, I'm like, kid's gonna bust his goddamn head open, and that's somebody's property. You know, I'm like worrying about like legal like lawsuits and shit like that. Whenever I see that,
I used to do that stuff back in high school.
Yeah, I know, but I see it, and I'm just like. That is like a building that someone owns, and you're about to smash your head on it like an egg, you know, like that, like what the fuck, but at the same time, putting that aside, insurance risks and everything aside, think of how you look at the world if you are really good at parkour and do some of that shit, like. The way that they look at like these obstacle courses that I see them do, I'm like, I would look at that. There's no way. There's like part one, no. But you'll see them basic leaping like Spider-Man from like building to building and stuff like amazing. Like your perception of reality and what is possible with your body has got to be through the roof.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's really it's really amazing what they can do. As someone I'm not a big fan of heights, and I'm just like, no, I don't need to even watch that. But it's extremely impressive.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that that opening chase scene in Casino Royale was very inspiring to a lot of people. Where Daniel Craig was chasing, I forget that particular Frenchman's name, but it was like he's actually a fairly famous person in the like the parkour world. Right. I messed around a little bit with parkour. I was more on like the tumbling and acrobatic side, but there's a lot of crossover in there, in that world. But yeah, it unlocks different ideas of what the body is capable of and what the environment affords to you. And I mean, and this is not unique to parkour. Obviously, it applies to powerlifting. Here's a big rock, I could lift that, you know? Or like you could do a whole conversation about like lifting stones. If you haven't seen an audience, if you haven't seen the full Sturker documentary, you really ought to. It's fantastic. But swimming, you know, running long distances. You get these guys who are like the hottest, driest, most dangerous desert in the United States. Let's make an ultra marathon through it in July. And now we have the Badwater Ultra Marathon, which is 160 miles through Death Valley. It's like things you wouldn't have thought possible. And like, is it good for an individual to do this? All else equal, no. But is it cool that it can be done? And that there's someone at the edge of the spear showing that when push comes to shove, this is what a human body is capable of. That's fucking amazing. It's and like, are most of them freaks of nature? Yes, but you can get a lot closer to that than you think you can. And and it like that unlocking of what is possible is an opening up, not just of yourself, but of like kind of the entire world, because it changes your relationship with the world in a positive way and makes the world not a scary place that you need to isolate yourself from, protect yourself from, but as something to learn the skills to interact with in a powerful athletic, beautiful manner, whether that's proper clean form or a proper, parkour leap, or a high dive from some freaking 30-foot diving board. You see these cliff divers, you see these guys doing these crazy axe wielding death dives. All that stuff is an embrace of this gift of life and of the body that we have for some period of time. I don't know. I think all of that is wrapped up in a positive relationship that we have with the body. Don't waste it. Is basically
yeah. I mean, especially like if you're young. I mean, like old people will tell you they wish they could still do stuff. And
they
I
still
will
can.
say,
Some stuff.
well, yeah. I mean,
not everything.
Some stuff. They wish they could still do the things they used to do, or the way that they used to do them. But I mean, I will definitely say. I mean, I had someone try to nag me years ago, and maybe like 1 year ago. Saw the Invocation of the Storm video, and then put it beside a picture of me like from like I don't know, like 2007 or something. And it was meant to be negative, and I'm like, how is that negative?
No,
You just showed
look
my
at what
before
I
and
did.
After. This is proof of concept. I mean, really, I mean, I've definitely become a different person. I mean, the way that people talk about me now in real life, I mean, like aside from being Jack Donovan or whatever author stuff, but just talk about me physically. Like, I never would have thought that was possible when I was like in my 20s. I was not that guy. I never taken any martial arts, never done any fighting stuff, never really done any serious lifting, any of that stuff. That dudes, when I'm almost 50, would talk about me like, oh, he's really strong, and like that. I'm okay. I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Okay, like that. That changed my identity and my self-perception of what I'm capable of by pushing myself out into doing those things. And obviously the extreme.
We lost sound. Take a moment to read some more comments. Zeroth, the Immortal, says, I tell everyone it starts with breath, and high oxygenation of the body will get you high. I only take a legit rest day once a week, maybe. Well, that's probably not optimal, but like the habit's more important than optimization. So awesome. It's a good lifestyle. Mike Ronan says, try doing it for 50 years. I can't imagine not training. Exactly. These habits become a part of your identity, and that's fantastic. Zeralath Immortal says, I'm catching up on what was a weaker life than I could stand before. Now I enjoy harder labor jobs for better pay, thus the lack of rest days. Oh, well, I mean, that's sort of my life too in the trades. Being in construction is good. I don't think being in construction is totally sufficient for a good fitness regime, but it's a nice baseline. It's a much better baseline than a desk job, that's for sure. Paul Osborne says, I tell my sons that once you get chiseled, you will always have that voice in your head when you slack off. It will always be there to remind you of what you once were. Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. And I feel like I remember reading a study about this. Take all studies with a grain of salt, but still can't hear you. I feel like I remember reading at some point that how fit someone is at 18 becomes a sort of has some relationship to what they're capable of later on in life. Now that doesn't stop someone who was not so fit in their teens from in their 30s deciding to get in shape and then doing it. They absolutely can. But if you get fit in like really, really peak performance at 17, 18, 19, it makes getting back to fit much easier later on in life, supposedly. So good parental advice there. And that's something I'm hoping to do with my kids as well. They're just getting to that
Check.
age. There you are. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Sweet. We were just talking about Paul Osborne just mentioned that he tells his sons, once you get chiseled, you'll always have that voice in your head when you slack off. It will always be there to remind you of what you once were.
Oh, for sure.
Which is like, now that I think about it psychologically, there is a kind of danger there too, of because sometimes, like you were mentioning before, they're like, you can if people get injured or they fall off their program, it can become easy to actually just give up. And the number of guys in their late 30s or 40s I've met who were once fantastic athletes, supposedly, and they're now like legit 300 pounds, you know, and
Yeah.
like can't run a flight of stairs, let alone a full football field. Like what you once were can be a nostalgic compensation for what you are not now.
No, it's the Al Bundy syndrome.
Yeah.
You know.
But the point stands that Paul Osborne is making, I think, is like if it becomes an identity, that's super valuable. And you know what it takes to get there too. Like, oh, if I want to get in shape, well, I do the things that my parents taught me. You know, you eat better, sleep well, go out for walks, and you know, train 2 or 3 times a week.
Right.
So, yeah, there's also probably, I mean, we didn't really talk a lot about martial arts, but you were talking a little bit about jiu-jitsu too. There's also something to be said, you know, if we're talking about fitness as a virtue, about the violence or general capability crossover too. There's a sort of ongoing joke, probably an intergenerational joke among women that you know, you keep your man around to open the pickle jar, but imagine being that man who couldn't open the pickle jar. You know?
Right.
You know, be that like. I
mean, sometimes they're tight, man.
It's true. It's true.
Sometimes you have to get out the butter knife and pop that thing. But
I no joke got out my wife handed me a jar of, I don't even remember what it was, but it was one of these plastic. It was a jar of mayo. That's what it was. Yeah. And I twisted the lid, and the plastic of the bottle started twisting. So I got 2 pairs of channel locks, and I held the bottle and I held the top, and that still wouldn't open it. And it's like, I use channel locks every day, so we eventually just cut it. But like, I've got a Dyna grip of like 160 pounds. I'm not like weak in the
right.
like, grip department. It's just a crappy bottle sometimes. Generally speaking, you open the pickle jar. You know,
for sure.
You want over 100 pounds of grip strength, ideally. You don't need to be electricians or plumbers, but you know, but like for competence and for fulfilling the roles that other people expect of you is also valuable, I think, and I suppose that you might expect of yourself too. I can't imagine that it would feel good to want to be able to do something but then be physically unable to do it.
And so many men are actually in that situation, more than not, really. I mean, I can tell you, especially because I spent some years delivering exercise equipment, I like moving things. Like I do not like any other part of moving at all. It's tedious. Maybe I'll get down on cleaning some bathrooms. I'm not gonna lie. I'll go hard. It'll be like I only clean one way. I don't clean every day. But if I clean, Clorox is coming out. Like we're going hard. Clorox and toothbrushes. You know, like we're going hard. But
pause.
But no,
Jack's mic has a power level over 9,000.
Is it? Did I bring it down a little bit?
It's up.
It's still high. Okay. Mm-hmm. I noticed this. I was blowing it out. I bought this as a cheaper one, but I thought I'd make you just get away with it and just plug it in. But while I was making that video yesterday,
there you go.
I did 2 or 3, and then I threw takes, and I had to throw the takes out because I was blowing the levels out just by talking the whole time. So is it a little bit better now? I turned it down.
That's way better. That's
by a
perfect.
lot. Okay, yeah, it's down to like 25% now. Yeah, but cool.
You're talking about power cleans, but the other kind.
Oh yeah, well, just definitely just moving furniture. Like to know that, like I'm like I got that. You know, I got that. I know how to do that. Or to even just know that you can showboat it is like, you know, like it's still my most popular video on my Instagram. It was a reel that I did when we moved down here from Salt Lake City. It was me packing the truck, and it's like me carrying giant pieces of furniture on my shoulders, like because it's like I can do that, you know, like it's a flex. Like I'm just gonna fucking throw that up there, and I know how to balance it, and I'm pretty good at it, and I'm pretty comfortable with where I'm at with that kind of stuff, and it's cool. Like, yeah, you need, if you, I always joke when people were like, you need help moving stuff. I'm like, I joke. I mean, obviously I have some other skills, but like, I'm like, that's all I'm good for. You know, like it's kind of my little thing. I like doing that. It's fun. And it's cool to be, you know, like to have that ability. And so many dudes with their little baby arms can't do that at all. Like,
I was sent out on a job 2 weeks ago. Forgive me if I talked about this before, but it was a chandelier on a 16-foot ceiling. And so my company said, oh, you'll just go by this ladder place. We'll rent you the 14 to 21 foot ladder.
Yeah.
And I'm like an extension ladder? They're like, no. It's like an A-frame ladder. I'm like, all right. Turns out it's called was it the Little Giant M21, and it's 102 pounds. And I had to get this thing on my van and off and bring it through the door without touching anything and set it up without hitting the walls, and so I could replace the chandelier by myself. If I had not been training with rocks and weights and stuff, I probably would not have been able to do that, you know, or I would have needed someone else to help me. So like literally income in this case depended on that. That's not like normal, but you know, there are times where, and not everyone's an electrician, but it's nice to be able to do that. And some of the jobs I've been to, I had one customer who was himself an electrician for 20 years, and he wanted some ceiling fans installed, and he was blunt. He's like, I'd do it myself, but I'm too fat to get in the attic. And I'm like, fair enough. I'll do it for money. And he paid for it and was happy to. But like, when I am in my 50s, I would like to not be that guy. You know, I would like to still be able to do these things to save my family money, and just to have the pleasure of knowing I can do it myself. You know, there's kind of freedom and that Nietzschean sense of power that comes with having the ability to get things done on your own. And I think people really miss a lot more people these days are kind of missing out on that pleasure, which is very sad. Conan says the shirt is nice. Paul Osborne also says the mic is perfect. So
got it down.
Yeah. That is the nice. I guess it's worth talking about this shirt too, pertaining to fitness and bodybuilding and stuff, because in the way that everything sort of ties together, most of the shirts that you find at like Walmart are designed nowadays for fat people. My wife complains that like it seems like everything in society is designed for childless people. And so it becomes tacitly and implicitly anti-children in some way, as you introduce more things that like you can't have kids around because there's all this fragile shit that's within reach, or this is like too nice and you don't want kids. But like there's something similar with fitness too, and I think it goes the other way too. As more people get more fit, whether that's through CrossFit or the Pilates classes, it modifies clothing, and it's kind of cool to be a part of the shifts from Walmart clothing into clothes designed to fit people.
Yeah, and that's a huge. I mean, there's definitely over the last like 8 to 10 years, there's been a lot of advancements in that. Well, it's also funny. Just people were built differently at different times in history, and like in the 70s, like the 60s and 70s, people didn't have big arms. Like that's a new thing. I mean, there was like a small subculture of bodybuilding, but dudes now actually have bigger arms. I mean, obviously there's fat guy arms, and then dudes who think they have big arms, but they just have fat guy arms, and then there's just dudes generally have bigger arms. Like I can't buy vintage clothing. Like, because my arms won't fit into it. Like the cool shirts that I like with the big collars like this, they're the 70s. Like I can't buy those for me because unless they're stretchy, my arms won't fit into them because they just weren't made for that. Like dudes weren't walking around. Dudes who were buying stylish clothes in like 1975 did not have arms this size. And my arms aren't even that big, but it's like it just wasn't a thing. So it's different. It's a different. We could go into that too, is like all the different like body types of history and things like that. What we consider fit now is actually kind of weird historically. Like that people didn't walk around looking like this.
Yeah, I mean, our ideals today. I mean, it used to be Michelangelo's David was elevated as the kind of the masculine ideal, this perfect human form. And nowadays you look at like so I hope I'm not apostatizing here, but as impressed as I am with bodybuilders, and I do like the sport in principle, the shows do look gross to me. They actually look wrong, uncanny in some way. Like, this is not a perfect human. This is like like something is wrong with this person, kind of.
I mean, it depends which category, I think. Like actual full on the biggest bodybuilding, like that. Yeah, that's a freak show. Like for sure. When you get into like more like classic era, like golden era bodybuilding or like classic bodybuilding, which is a different category.
I'm not talking about Schwarzenegger. Like
right.
that era. Like that is just impressive and.
Right. Well, that's a classic bodybuilding, and then there's the next level of bodybuilding, which is the freak show, like kind of bodybuilding, which was most popular, I think, maybe like 80s, 90s, early 2000s, like those. Let's see how big we can get, and there are still guys doing that, but like I think the the aesthetics and physique mentality is much more geared towards the classic bodybuilding level, and it's also a body type thing. I mean, there are only certain guys who can get to that monster size, and then there's certain guys who are going to look better at different things, and then there's also like and then whether you're doing natural or not natural is another thing, and then also like the what is it? The beach, the ones where they actually wear board shorts and they don't even have to have big legs. There's a more, it's more physique like oriented. I forget what the name of it is, but there's a whole category for that too. So it just depends which level. But yeah, the extreme level, I mean, it is a freak show, and they know they're doing a freak show. Like this is not what humans look like. But no, I do think. I've joked before. It's like if people say, you look like a Greek god. I'm like, that's actually pretty achievable. If you look at the Greek statues, I mean, they were natty, and they're not that. They look pretty normal. Like basically, what they look like is what you see all the time. If you look at like D1 level, like high school wrestlers. Like I think D1 is college, so but that would be off. But
that's still better than the average. that you see in public by a decent margin.
By a lot. I mean, but that was what we consider the ideal male form, and I still think it probably is. Like Josh and I actually have talked about it before. We're like, objectively and health wise and all this other stuff, you take like, a 24-year-old, like 18 to 24-year-old competitive wrestler, they usually have like the best bodies. Maybe also but these guys are usually a lot smaller, but not necessarily. But the gymnasts as well. Gymnasts tend to have they look really good, like proportionately and whatever. And the same thing.
Scott Adams before. Scott Adams is fond of mocking people as NPCs who feel obliged to chime in and mention something about how swimmers have the best bodies. Hey, apparently that's a common phrase that people will just say, and he's like, "That's an NPC take. That's not."
It's not real. I mean, it's there's a certain kind of body type that works better to be a swimmer. Like that is made to do that. Like they tend to be tall. I think, they have a big stroke or whatever. Like, I don't know if that's always the case, but it seems that way. The really competitive ones. If you look at like Michael Phelps. I mean, he's a long stick guy, and that seems to be and that's, again, that's the best for his body type. You would not want to watch him try to be a powerlifter or a bodybuilder. It would be comical. It would be like, he shouldn't do that. Like he's clearly not built for that sport, but he's obviously built for swimming.
Right.
So like, again, it's one of those things, like we can talk about the ideal body type or whatever, but ultimately, like, you get what you get. And you can probably do a lot more with what you have than you think, but you are limited. I mean, my career as a basketball player would be pretty limited. I'm 5'10". That's probably just not going to happen for me. It really is a football player. I mean, I shouldn't be over really 205 pounds. I don't really think. And, they're a lot bigger guys, generally. So it's... But like I'm not like proportioned well enough to really be a competitive bodybuilder. They're a little bit wider, a little bit narrow in the hips, and tend to be a little bit shorter. Like that 5'7" to 5'9" is a real good range. Not always. You get the taller ones like Arnold, but so it's like, well, what are you going to do with your body, like that you get? Because there are guys that are walking around that are 5'5", and they can be really strong. But they're not gonna maybe, there's this thing in society, obviously right now, with especially women thinking that all men need to be over 6 feet tall, and that's obviously not real. But I think being short is a lot more of a stigma than it maybe used to be. People used to be shorter a lot. So
yeah. Zeralath the Immortal asks, "What about the Spartans when they were at their height? I heard about the athletic culture they held." Well, regardless of the height of their athletic culture, I seem to recall the average Spartan warrior being around like 5 foot, like 4 or something like that. In those ages, they're much shorter and extremely athletic. And yes, they had the agoge. They were trained from children. At least according to legend. The extent of Spartan martial excellence might have been slightly exaggerated, though they were still excellent soldiers, of course. Same thing with the Roman legionaries. They would famously train with wooden swords, and they would train with wooden swords because they were able to make wooden swords that were twice the weight of the actual gladiuses that they would use in combat as strength and endurance training. And I think Ajax actually did a fairly deep dive a couple of years ago into Greek training, and he found that they did a lot of wrestling, partner work, body training, a lot of like stone delt raises and things like that, a lot of hill runs, and I forget. He's got a whole book, I think, on it now, like how the ancient
I think it's an ebook or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So I imagine that would be a place for Zeralath the Immortal to look if he was interested in the Spartan program. Conan says,
but I mean, this is okay. Actually, can I jump into this because this is a personal pet peeve of mine, and we actually got asked it in the main group. Not the first man, but the new group, and it's just something that I like to poke people with, because people asked about ancient training methods, and ancient implements,
superior to modern things.
Right. And it's a golden age mentality. It's because these things are old, are they better? Well, how do those people look? Do they look better than the people who are, your average fitness influencer looks way the fuck better than most of these people that you're
he's fucking dead to me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay, well, you see Indians, whatever, in India train with all these cool implements. And yes, they look very cool and poetic, but also look at most of them. The ones that look cool are wrestlers. And they train like wrestlers. And so they look like wrestlers. And then the rest of them are just throwing these things around and they're skinny fat. And, there's a prejudice, I think, in our space towards if something's ancient, they must have known something we don't, and whatever. And the reality is that the people who are designing exercise equipment right now are literally hooking up electrodes to people's bodies and seeing where the tension curve is and where it is ergonomically correct for you to be in the right position to do the right thing to achieve a particular result.
Yeah.
The amount of research that's going into this is intense, and so, obviously I just did this thing on this $45,000 machine today where they're literally tracking my power output the whole way through. There is nothing in the ancient world like that.
Right.
And so then people have this it's all poetic, really. They're it's all about the fantasy of the old thing. I like maces. A lot of our guys train with maces, and they're not bad. They're basically a shoulder rehab tool and a shoulder strengthening tool. And there are people who would argue that there are other things, but what they are not is a full body workout. And they're not a sole training system. And some people seem to think that way, but they look cool when you swing it overhead, especially if you have abs. Because it breaks your abs out and whatever, and so if you're in pretty thin and you have good shape and you swing this thing, you look really good while you're doing it, and you make good Instagram videos. And as I've joked many times, they are the nunchucks of the 2020s, because they're a weapon. And that's why dudes like them. A mace is a weapon. And I'm swinging a weapon, I look fucking cool. It's the same as dudes with in the fucking 80s fucking doing their nunchucks. And why? Because it fucking looks cool. Are the nunchucks probably a great weapon? I don't think so. In the scale of weapons, they're probably not the number one choice of most martial artists in the world. But man, it looks fucking cool when you do tricks.
Imagine how much more successful the Crusades would have been if they had ditched their longswords and just made nunchucks instead.
Right?
An army of knights.
It would have been. Would you doubt that it would be cooler to watch? Oh shit, the mace guys are here! Oh, the Indian clubs guys are coming! I think this is actually a good skit. We should do Indian clubs versus mace guys versus nunchucks guys, and just have a three-way war. That goes on with it. What happens? It all looks fucking cool, but that doesn't mean it's the most effective thing in the world. And that's the same thing with training. That's just because it looks cool doesn't mean it's the best training.
Well, but this goes back to I feel like this is a constant theme, just in the same way that you can look at the music scene and look at this constant back and forth between long-haired hippies with slow 7-minute songs versus short-haired punks with skinny jeans and 2-minute songs. and there's this constant oscillation from like the 20s all the way to the present of going through these phases. I feel like there's a similar thing in fitness where it's like we're going to optimize, and then we're going to go to habits that we enjoy, and then we're going to go optimize, and then like it turns out all the things that are optimal really suck, and then people go back into like, what are exercises that I enjoy doing, and then I can make habits out of it. And it's the same cycle. And you'll look at these guys, these like Brian Johnsons, for example, the guy who's trying to live forever, who's injecting blood and
right, the lesbian.
Yes. Yeah. He does look a little bit like Judith Butler. But like, is that optimal? Probably is at some scientific level. Do I want to do that?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I don't want to do that. And like the price of what is optimal in one narrow dimension probably costs you a lot in other things that you are no longer optimizing for. And at the end of the day, like the connection with other people, the aesthetic enjoyment of it, all of these other things are not unrelated to our fitness, because at the end of the day, part of the reason we're trying to get fit is to connect with other people. So like for me and stones, I just got a 6th stone,
and you do weigh them.
Yes, I do.
You do weigh them, which is substantial, because that's one of my beefs with like, let's go outside and lift stuff outside. I'm like, well, I actually know how much I can lift all the time, and let's say it's all weighed and whatever. Yeah. like it's science. Maybe it's the only thing I am mathy about, but like I mean, but you know, like if you weigh it, so you're like, okay, well, this is a 160-pound stone, and I lifted it the X amount of times. It's trackable. Yeah.
I was told by someone, so my 2 heaviest stones, I have a 140-pound stone and I have a 180-pound stone. My newest addition is a 124-pound stone, which is kind of redundant with my 126, but there's a story behind it, so I'm still glad I have it. But anyways, I was told by a friend that if I can overhead press my 140-pound stone 7 times, I should be in striking distance of being able to overhead press my 180-pound stone once. So that's a good like numerical approach to this.
Yeah.
Currently, I can do the one on a good day. I can overhead press my 140-pound stone for 4 reps. So I'm not in striking range of the 180 yet. We'll get there eventually. So we can bring a little bit of mathy science to it, but there's no illusion. There's no belief that stones are optimal. They are inferior to the barbell. And probably inferior. The barbell is probably inferior to dumbbells for other reasons, but
yes, it is.
But
I believe I will put I will die on that hill.
They probably are. Dumbbells are probably better than, but like the reason I'm doing the stones is not for optimization, and they do still perform the function. So like, not just for connecting people with people in the present, but there is a kind of an aesthetic and spiritual value to connecting with people in the past. You know, there's that famous stone where in Greece, it was like a 344 pounds. I'm probably remembering the weight wrong, but it was like a fairly heavy stone. It was 350 pound stone, and it has carved on it, you know, so and so could lift this stone over their head.
Right.
And like, so many strongmen will read that inscription, and now they're in a competition with the guy who died 3,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to beat that guy. And that's a relationship. And that's cool. That like, there's something, there's value in strength beyond number go up. There's value in strength beyond. Now the numbers can be an extremely useful tool for developing, but it's
the best way to train to beat that guy is probably to use the number system, and then to lift a whole bunch of things and that are that same weight, whatever, and at that different levels of and then you can actually train to lift that particular thing. But then you're doing the poetic thing in the end. The best way to get there is probably for numbers. But yes.
Sure, yeah, and I think the best way, not to sound too Aristotelian about it, but there's probably a mean, there's probably a middle ground where you're not going full Brian Johnson transhumanist with the numbers, but you're also not ignoring the numbers and the science like a 1960s know nothing who's like an anti-intellectual grug go ugh, grug lift stone voices go away kind of like meme thinker either. There is a way to do the best of both worlds, but
I saw a guy the other day. This reminds me of. There's a guy who I've actually tried his product. It's called Marikai Blue, I think. I forget the guy's exact name, but he's on X, and that's how I found it. And it's a whole like drink fish tank cleaner to make your mitochondria better thing. But I actually kind of liked it. I would buy it again. It's kind of expensive, but it's anyway. He also fights, I believe, professionally at MMA, and so he's very into like natural health stuff and whatever this stuff is not natural, I don't think, but it's a blue dye, really, but sun, being out in the sun, doesn't, stays away from seed oils, all the things that people who are more into the natural health scene do. He's the one I got. His product has tallow in it, and that's why I use tallow now. So super into all that natural stuff. But he made a post the other day that I thought was really smart and interesting. He's like, he's going into a fight camp for his next fight. And he's like, right now I'm still at the part in the fight camp when I can run outside, I can run barefoot in the grass, I can train the way I like to train, whatever. But when it comes down to the last like 4 or 5 weeks, then we're going into science land, and I'm going to be surrounded by polyester and doing whatever it takes, because the goal is not health, the goal is to win. It was a really well balanced, I think, thought process of like, hey, I do this stuff. I think this is the most healthy lifestyle to live on a general basis, but this is how it gets fucking done. So it's I think it was a very realistic, like kind of gold meme like way of looking at it. Like you say, like I like all these natural things and these are good, but like also there's a way to do certain things, like that we have the technology.
Yeah. No, it's all about like what's the cost, and is the cost worth it? It's like what you were talking about before with powerlifting. It's like, is it good for men to go through this for a year or two? Yes, it is good. So you know what that's like. Is it good for men to go through that because it's good for their bodies? I mean, in one way, yes. In another way, you could say, you might really screw yourself up. There might be some risk to it.
There's always risk in anything cool. I mean, we literally just talked about parkour.
Oh, exactly. No,
like, I mean, there's risk in anything. I would say that. Exactly. I mean, that's when you get in, we get into just so stories, because we could just make up whatever we think about health, which is really what people do anyway. Let's be real. But I mean, I would say putting your body under that stress for like a few years probably builds like residual strength that you would not have otherwise. That helps you in the long run. But yes, there is a possibility you'll get injured while you're doing it, but probably not if you're doing it right. I
wasn't saying that to discourage people from doing that.
No. I was just running with it. Like, I mean, because I actually do think a lot of like my jiu-jitsu strength and stuff like that has a powerlifting foundation. That has like, I'm strong in certain areas from like doing that. And so like in a way that I wouldn't be otherwise. So or in bodybuilding and all that stuff. It's like that's all those things help. But like you said, it's basically, I think what we can say is the point of diminishing returns.
Well, and diminishing returns in relation to what you value, like what's important to you. And like, I think this is the problem that Matthew Crawford pointed out with safety policies, with cars and construction sites in general. It's like, life is not about not dying. That not dying is not the substance of life. Life is about doing things. And there's always a risk to those things that you do, and there's always a cost. And so, like, what matters to you is, by definition, worth doing. And so what I was talking about, like the trade-off with, in relation to this guy doing fight camp and going full science, or the Brian Johnson using science to like optimize his life and optimize his sleep. I think I remember hearing Andrew Huberman talking about this. There, a number of people have said that the best way to optimize your sleep, to get the best sleep, is to sleep alone, to not sleep with your spouse or your partner, to not sleep with other people.
Right.
That may be true. That may be optimal. I'm not going to do that.
I'm sure my dog wrapped up in my fucking spine in the middle of the night is not ideal. I'm sure Spiky like grinding against my lower back is not like optimal for my thing, but like I like my dog.
Yeah. The aesthetic ideals, the ideals that we are pursuing in strength itself don't come from science. We can point to scientific benefits, like, oh, you get a little bit less cognitive decline over time if you bodybuild. Do you know that? Like, that's a nice. I do like to throw that in. It's a fun fact to throw out because it cuts against the like body versus mind trade-off idea. But as much as I enjoy pointing that out, I doubt anybody on Earth decided to get into bodybuilding because of that, or powerlifting because of that.
No.
That's not what brings people to it. And the ideals that draw people into wanting to be fit happen outside of science. Science sort of presupposes certain ideals. And unfortunately, the ideal that science has become dominated by tacitly is not dying.
It's the safety thing.
Right.
And that's why when you know people who have the experience, I mean, really clinical experience in dealing with injuries and things like that, it's what doctors will tell you is wrong. And that's why you have to, like, if you're into athletics, you need to go to a doctor who deals with people who are athletic. Because everything that they're going to say is wrong. Like they'll just tell you to just stop doing it. Like, don't do the thing that hurts. Okay, well, you're an idiot, and that's not how anyone achieves anything in life. And it's like, stuff that sounds terrible in people. I mean, I just remember listening to powerlifters talk about like someone's like, I can't deadlift because I have a herniated disc. It's like, I just pulled 600 yesterday and I have a herniated disc. Eat shit. Like you can do that with a herniated disc. Shut up. Whereas a doctor would be like, no, don't do that. And in so many cases, that's the same thing. We had a discussion. Somebody brought up tendinitis the other day, and anyone who trains martial arts or like bodybuilding or anything like that a lot has probably had tendinitis at some point. And you work around it, or you figure out what's wrong. A lot of times it's like a flexibility issue. For me, it's like I got to a point of like lifting where I couldn't make my hand face up. Like my hand was stuck about there because my muscles were so tight in my forearms. Well, if your muscles are that tight in your forearms all the time, how's that going to affect your elbow? That's like all these things are like, and it can also come from your shoulder too. Like if that's over tight or your triceps over tight, it can pull on this and just cause this imbalance that creates pain. And so a lot of the fixing sometimes for like things that are causing tendinitis is like, well, I have to get so I can turn my hand the whole way straight up. There's a flexibility issue that's actually I've caused by like doing this for so long. That's and the same thing. It's like when you do jiu-jitsu, like you're grabbing onto like fabric, especially gi. God, you're grabbing onto fabric, and your hands just feel like they don't even work after you're done because you're just holding onto this fabric for dear life. Well, the forearm flex you get out of that is crazy, like if you stay that way for too long, your hands just start to be like they're like this, and so like you get there's a lot of the But if you just talk to a doctor, they're like, oh, well, you should probably stop training like that for a while. Okay, shut up. No one who's actually good at that does that. You have to figure out there's ways that you can fix things that have nothing to do with what is in the book.
The Christopher McDougall book Born to Run opens the same way. He was a writer for GQ on sports stuff, and he wanted to get into long distance running, and he kept getting knee and foot injuries, and he went to like not just a few doctors but some of the top sports med doctors in the United States, and they all said, oh, you're just not designed for running. You really shouldn't be doing this. Your body's not designed for this. You're not born to run. And he was basically like, well, how about no? Let me find some less orthodox opinions on this. And the book, of course, concludes with like he goes through this whole journey through like running ergonomics and like knee impact and running on the balls of your feet versus running heel toe, and how jogging came to be a thing. And it concludes with him running the 60-mile race with these like other long distance runners, and he finishes and he's fine. He's not getting injured. Like they were all wrong. All the experts were wrong.
Right.
They were probably wrong because it was like insurance biased them to just say safe things. Because that's how science works. 80% of the time.
Yeah. It's like, we're both, because, it's two guys in my household, like we both operate on the system of like, whatever you have is probably just going to go away. like we don't go to doctors, like unless there's something really bad, like whatever. Like most of what hurts will probably go away. Or if you have something, most things just go away. That's true. I don't think I don't think
on a long enough timeline, all pains go away.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously there's certain things that you can't even predict that'll do that. The modern medicine thing is to like get checked up constantly and have be
was that book 5 of the Republic, where they was talking about how if a guy is not going to get better, he better get on with it and just die already. But if he's not going to die, then like he can just get better and go about his business and not be troubled with his prolonged illness, and how all these Asclepiates just prolong suffering. And it's like, this is not good medicine.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the world we live in. Yeah.
I thought it was a funny joke, but there is a kind of dark edge to it in a modern context.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Zeralath Immortal says, except acidic kidney stones. Yes, that would be an well, yeah, yes. that too shall pass, so to speak.
Yeah, or you die. That's because people used to die of those. I mean, there are some things that modern medicine is really good at. But I think
broken bones.
Anything like mechanical, like they're really good at mechanical fixes. When it comes to like health promotion of like health and vitality, they're not really good at that.
There's a drug for that. It'll give you other side effects. We have drugs for those too.
yeah, exactly. But when it comes to mechanical fixes, they're really good at things. Like they do that way better than they used to, obviously.
Yeah. Zeralath Immortal says, I suffer a little bit of wrist circulation trouble when I grip things tight. I've tried a few basic things. Yeah, electricians, it's a common problem to get arthritis, especially in the thumb, from like cutting wire, sometimes for 8 hours a day. I was told that ice massages of the wrist area, and also lightweight, like 5-pound wrist curls, over years can help, stuff like that.
Yeah. And like I said, with a lot of things, it's like, I mean, that sounds like something very specific. That's like people getting carpal tunnel from typing. It's like a job related like thing. I mean, but it may be an issue of, like I said, for a lot of things is, like I said, with the tendonitis thing, a lot of things, it's like stretch it the other way. Whatever way it's going all the time, it probably needs to go the other way. Like that having it go the other way may help a lot. And actually, it was Greg Hamilton when one of the times that I've had tendonitis, because I've had tendonitis so many times, and there's one thing that causes it which I'm not going to say, But there's other things that people will take that as being something dirty, and it's not. But it's not at all. But there's something I was taking for a little while that it was like every time I take that, I get tendonitis, so I can't take that anymore. But I would get it, and a lot of things. What helps it is people get the things that mountain climbers use to stretch their fingers.
Oh, the little
Basically
rubber
stretch thing the other way. Basically, like that stretches the other way, and a lot of times that'll help with tendonitis because instead of going like this, instead of crunching in, you're moving your fingers out.
Well, this is with lifting too. If you're benching a lot, you need to do rows as well.
Right.
You know,
that's an amazing
balance. Yeah.
Children, do not be that guy. Every once in a while I'll see the guy who like has overdone like chest work to the point where he walks like this, like that's what happens. Like you get that, like they're so poor, their posture is actually fucked up because their chest is so tight and pulls their shoulders forward. And I've seen guys walk around like, I know exactly what your fucking problem is, Jesus Christ, because your back looks like dog shit, and like but you've obviously just been like it's bench day every day, and so like you're just like this all the time. That's no bueno. You need to like balance that out. And trainers will see that really quickly. They'll be like, oh Jesus Christ, your shoulders are shifted forward. Like that's a thing. I mean, mine may be slightly shouldered. I always look like when I wear this shirt, is it because of how it's cut? It's because of my traps. It's hard to like how things fit me in a certain way. I've actually had a tailor tell me, he asked me if I had a shoulder injury because he was a super high end tailor, and he's like your one shoulder sits up higher than the other, and I was like, what? I didn't know that, but like, I mean, he was able to see the imbalance because that's what they actually measure for that kind of shit when you get to a certain level of tailoring. He stands different, so you have to like compensate for that. But yeah, I mean, there all this about the other imbalance that I will say for the children is everybody ignores their real delts and then wants to know why their shoulders don't look good. And it's basically like people always do the front delts or the side delts, which is good, but you have to do rear delts because then that's how you get that like fucking cut at the back that makes your triceps pop out. Remember kids, train your rear delts.
And there are lifestyle things to take into account too. So I've been fighting for the last 5 years an asymmetry in my pecs. My left pec is bigger than my right pec. And it's because when you do pest control and you have that backpack sprayer every day for ants and spiders and whatever else, the pump is on the left-hand side and the sprayer is on the right. And you don't think about it that much, but you're essentially doing a partial dip with your left hand hundreds and hundreds of times a day, and it adds up over time. So it's been this like frustrating little asymmetry that I think is finally beginning to kind of go away. But for I swear to God, like for 3 or 4 years after I quit doing pest control, I still had like an annoyingly bigger pec on one side than the other. So like those asymmetries get like
it was sports specific training that you were doing.
Yeah, you gotta figure out some way to do right hand dips or something. I don't know. Well, let's see. Zero Lathimoro says, okay, the ice soak I haven't tried, thanks. Yeah, the science is a little mixed on the ice baths in recent months. Yeah. I think a lot of that comes down to people imagining it would do things that it was never supposed to be doing. Like, there are good reasons to do cold plunges and there are bad reasons to do cold plunges. So all it comes down to what you're expecting to get out of it, I think.
Yeah, like the guy who was Ryan, who was kind of directing me through it today. Like he's a military guy, and he likes it for the flight or fight response that you get because you have to push through it. And a lot of people like it for that, and that's legitimate no matter what.
Yeah.
Now, as to
that pain,
as a rehab tool, and contrast training, like this hot and cold thing that I did today, that has a lot of support for it. The just cold thing that a lot of people do, I think a lot of it is about a state change. And it basically, like you're putting your body through trauma, and then basically like forcing it through trauma through your will, so you're getting kind of a high out of that, and then you get out of freezing water that humans aren't supposed to be in. And that's why it hurts, because your body is saying, get out of water. You'll die here. And you get out of the water and you feel amazing because you're not dying. So there's this like brain chemistry probably release of like, we didn't die, we got out of the water. And so like I think there's some of that to it as well, that people go through a state change and then they get addicted to the state change. I don't know, I could get addicted to that oxygen bath today. That was something. I'm like, will this fix all my problems if I just go to the oxygen bath? I was so happy. I was thinking good thoughts. Don't
get in the heroin bath. That's
it would be a heroin bath. Like, where's Jack? He's been in the oxygen bath for 12 hours. It's something to try. I mean, all these things can be things, but the ice baths, I don't. There's a lot of people who push those as like, they'll change your life, and it'll do all these things. But if you look at most of the people who say that like they do ice baths to like lose brown fat or whatever, there's not a lot of people, super jacked dudes running around doing ice baths every day. A lot of it's kind of mediocre dudes doing something instead of all the training shit they should be doing and tracking their macros. It's like I haven't seen it turn into. I haven't seen ice baths specifically create elite physiques. How about that?
Well, it depends on your goals, right? Like, because you can say that the ability to endure cold and pain,
not bad,
is a physical feat
for sure.
Of sorts. And so like it all comes down to, what do you value? What's your goal? What are you trying to get to? Are you trying to be like Wim Hof in your ability to just sit in a freaking frozen lake for an hour? Or are you trying to look better for your spouse? Or are you trying to run a sub 5-minute mile for whatever reason? Or are you trying to my biggest fitness inspiration for since 2020 really has been Cameron Hanes. Mm-hmm. And I found that inspiration after having to haul out my brother's elk from the bottom of a probably 300-yard long ravine at hill. It's this scrubby hill, and I ended up making 4 trips with meat backpacks up and down this hill. It was probably the hardest physical thing I've ever done in my life. Mm-hmm. I can't think of anything harder than making 4 trips with, probably set 80 pounds of meat in the backpack each time, going up and down that hill. And you see why people like Cameron Hanes run ultra marathons for training. Now, what Cameron Hanes done is more intense even than what I do, because he's backcountry bow hunting, and he's not just hauling it up, 300 yards. He's hauling it back 20 miles, or more. And he's not like, he doesn't have like a marathoner's body. He can run 200 miles and he's jacked, he'll outbench me easy. Mike Ron and Cameron Hanes is a stud. Yeah, exactly. And it's like a very particular goal in mind based on a particular value that he is trying to do. And so like these, but all of these goals come from like positive ideals of what you're trying to be and to become. And I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. And with physical training, weight training, the body over time becomes an expression of our ideals. And the tragic inverse of that is the people who become infected with this idealization of looking after the poor and the oppressed and the marginalized and so forth, you can't help but notice how their bodies begin to express and to embody, so to speak, that negative ideal over time.
Yeah.
So the weight training seems to be a physical means of pursuing a non-physical ideal in our own bodies, and it's a beautiful thing. And there's not just one ideal, but that there's like a family resemblance, so to speak, of the positive ideals vis-a-vis the negative ones.
Yeah, and I think one of the best ways I think we could wrap up as far as judging what you should be doing in training is the honesty of what your intent is. As we've talked about, if you're doing ice baths because you want to be like Wim Hof and be able to do ice baths for a long time, then that is a good method of training for doing that. You are doing the correct thing. If you're doing it for other reasons that are really, let's say, I hate this word because I think it's pretentious, but spacious. like if you're doing it for reasons that are like very, very questionable in terms of their actual, how functional they really are. Do they really produce that result or not? Then maybe you're doing the wrong thing. The same is true with pretty much every kind of training that you could think about. I mean, it's like, for instance, if you wanted to train with some of these ancient implements, right? If you're honest and say what you said, that I want to do that because there's some poetic value to it, and it's be on a connection with the past, and it is a good workout, but I know there are better workouts, but I'm doing this, then that's fine. Then that is a good training method. If you're doing it because you read that it was the best secret training method that's going to change everything, no, you're wrong, and stop doing it. That's the. This just popped off. Yeah, so that's, I think, the best way to judge your goals.
If you want the best system, you ditch the stone and go by starting strength and just power lift. Everyone knows that's the best system.
You're just trying to trigger me with starting strength because I'm not a big fan. Although I started strength with starting strength. It is
a great place to start.
It is a good place to start, and then you put it away and never use it again because it's for high school football players. But it's a good place to learn how to lift, to start learning how to lift. And then there's more advanced things and other reasons that you do things. And the same thing. That's another thing of my example. Are you trained to be a high school football player? If so, use starting strength. If you are training to do something else,
brand new to powerlifting, but you think you want to get into it,
that may be a good place. There's probably, even for powerlifting, there's probably even better resources than that. But because that's not really for powerlifting. It's literally like the dude. All these guys are like high school football coaches, and it's like, well, please do not tell a 40-year-old man to drink gallons of milk, and just like power lift a few times a day at like a week and think that that's good. No, that's when you're trying to pack on. Like my nephew wants to play football, and they told him he had to gain like 30 pounds. That's for that. Okay, lift heavy and eat a lot, because they don't want him to get injured at like 170 pounds getting pummeled by like 200-pound guys. So they want you to be a certain weight. And that's what that kind of training is for. But it's not for looking good. And it's not for like functionality or anything like that. And it's not even for powerlifting. So you have to really analyze what the training that you're doing was designed to do, and if that's the result you're trying to get. And if you want to look like a bodybuilder, do not train like a powerlifter, because your deadlift does not make you look better at all. But deadlifting a lot of weight is pretty cool. I've my max was 535. I was happy with that. I don't ever need to go up there again. But I worked really hard to get there, and it's fucking cool. You get up the first time. I remember being in the gym the first time I ever lifted 315, which isn't that much, but like it's also that's grown up weight. That's like okay, that's a pretty good weight. And
my PR deadlifting up until 2021 was 365.
Yeah.
And COVID began to happen, and I ended up getting laid off because COVID laid off like half of the construction world. And I didn't go back to a gym for like 3 years or whatever. But I was in my in-laws' garage, and my father-in-law had a bunch of gym equipment, and on a whim, I'm like, I'm gonna try to beat my old deadlifting PR.
Right.
And I got 371, and it felt fucking awesome.
Yeah,
that's not a lot of weight. Like you were saying, like under 400 deadlift is not something to brag about, but still feels good, you know.
but you're not training for deadlifting.
No,
I mean, if you wanted to, if you had a goal that I wanted to lift 405, you would be there, because you would do it every day, and that you do the things that need to happen for you to get there, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like, well, if you're training for those things, like I said, if you want to look good, deadlifting is probably not the way where you're going to start. Like that's probably not you're going to be the pinnacle of your program. But if you want to deadlift, that is. You know, if you want to do that one thing that one time and get it up to a certain point, then you do that. And there's techniques, there's science for that. And so it's just, this is how you judge whether someone's on the right program or they're not the right program. This is like, are you being honest about what your intention is? And are you following the right program to do what you actually want to do?
Yeah. And I had the inverse experience of that last month, because I've been telling myself that I want to hit 190 for like 5 years. And I realized, it suddenly dawned on me, like, if I want to hit 190, I should stop running. I don't want to stop running. I guess I don't want to hit 190. Done.
Yeah. You're like, why? Like, why did you want to hit 190? What's the metric? What does that metric mean and why? You know, like,
It was just kind of arbitrary. And I realized I actually really like, I like running more than I like this goal. So screw that. I'm going to continue to lift, and I'm going to continue to run. And that's fine.
Yeah. And that's I think where you get into the real shit, and where you stop having to listen to people say stupid things. Because like when people are like their goal is one thing and they're doing the opposite thing, then you're just like, oh, you're painful to listen to. But like why do you not see this? But if when your goals are congruent with the way that you're training, then you're doing the right thing, and whatever. So I think that's how you figure out what you're doing, if it's the right thing, and that's why, and also why we don't, like I said in the order fire when we started, it's not about, we don't all have the same goal. So like, what's your goal? And then we'll see what makes sense from there. But
right.
Anyway, but are there any more comments? We should probably wrap up here soon.
There were a few. Daniel Rose said, fitness and longevity expand your opportunity to live life fully, but it's important not to forget to build a life worth living and loving along the way. Exactly. Yeah. And it is important to remember, weightlifting is not what life is necessarily about. It's a big part. It is a big positive experience, though, and you might be missing out on some of life if you skip out on that. And it's a fantastic tool to, as you say, fitness and longevity expand your opportunity to live life fully. That is a good way to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Zeralath the Immortal has a bunch of comments. Okay, the ice soak, I haven't tried, thanks. Yeah, I've been thinking about those finger stretchers. Good call. Mike Ronan says Cameron Haynes is a stud. Yes, he is. Zeralath says, I want to survive at least 5 minutes with no oxygen in an emergency. You can follow David Blaine for how to do that kind of thing. You might not work all the way up to 11 minutes, but with the right breathing techniques, you do some hyperventilation practice in the pool, you can get up to 4 minutes. I think I've gotten up to like 3.5, 4 minutes at one point.
Yeah, Vic's the man for that. Vic.
Oh yeah, freaking mixed gas diving. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure he could figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. I think that's basically it for the comments.
Yep.
Go lift. It's good for you. It's good for everybody else. And Yeah, it just seems to make the world and the better place because it makes you a better person.
And don't be gross because it brings everything down around you. I mean, that's kind of what you were saying at the beginning with the shopping cart and then like the comments.
Yeah,
I didn't say it at the time, but it was making, because like my first experience usually of the day is I go to the Circle K and I'm getting my Rockstar and Metrics bar, and and so that's my first experience of seeing the world, and it's all the construction guys and whatever. And I'm like, some guy this morning, I'm like, I do have the thought often, like, why do you think you get to look like that? Like, it makes me mad. Like, because there's regular chubby and there's whatever, and then there's like your belly is so big that it's hanging out from under your shirt, but it's like it's like a foot below your waist.
Well, that's
like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Yeah,
that actually makes me mad.
It makes the space you inhabit a negative space for other people. So
it was drooling, waiting for to get to like the nicotine spot, and I'm trying to use the self-scan machine. I had to like push past this monstrosity to get to whatever. I'm like, fuck you.
You're not putting the shopping cart that is your body back in the cart corral, aesthetically speaking.
You're degrading my experience, but you're degrading my experience by being disgusting.
Right.
This is where I wish I could pull it over and have my "Do you hate fat people?" like "Do you hate fat people?"
That is, do you hate people who don't put their shopping cart back though? As far as our experience of the commons that we inhabit together in the world. But like the primary person who inhabits that commons that you are polluting is you. You're pissing in your own pool more than like you're pissing in other people's, although you're also doing that. So there's no reason
pissing in my eyes.
Right.
When you're fat, you're pissing in your eyes. Like, I feel like that's going to be taken out as a rule. You're fat, you're pissing in my eyes. To bring that back, and then we'll wrap it up, is that just so that I don't sound like an absolute asshole, I'll be the first person that if you try to fix it, I want to help. Like it's like the thing is, it's like, okay, well, you did that and you realize you know what you did wrong, and and you want to work on it. Okay, that's cool. Like I respect that. And like in the way that people child no, for real. I mean, if you're someone who realized that they did wrong, okay, well, I let things get out of hand, and okay, we all fuck up. I mean, I let things get out of hand all the time, but if you want to fix that, I think in the way that there's this idea, I think that a lot of people have, if they go to the gym and they're really out of shape, that people are staring at them and hate them. I think most people, there are assholes in the world, yes, but most people, it's like, even if you're just like, wow, that's rough, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But where else should you be? Like, if you're in the gym and you're the giant fat person in the gym, that says that you're working on you're working on fixing the problem, right? And then so I can't hate on that.
This is, I think what fat people misunderstand in their own twisted projection about fitness people is like when a fitness bro, when a CrossFit dude goes to a gym and sees an obese person on a treadmill, what's their first reaction?
Good.
Exactly. Yeah. They're
that's
if
this is where you fix that.
If a normal person is driving down the street and they see a fat person out jogging, they might point and laugh and be like, "What the fuck are they doing out here?" A gym person who's out driving and sees a fat person running, they're like, "Fucking yeah, man!" They're like, "Get after it." It's a very positive
Because, you're joining our culture now. You're doing the thing that makes you a part of our team, which is the pro body fitness health thing.
Right.
And so, like, I wish more fat people understood that in overcoming their own.
Right.
And maybe they don't want that. Maybe they don't want anybody to see them in my shame. I want to just get to fit, and then people look at me. And I get that.
I'm sure they do, but that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, still, it's like they're rooting for you. And by the way, when they, like, half the guys who are in insanely good shape have body dysmorphia and think they look awful. Anyways.
Oh yeah, I was looking at some of the footage of me lifting today, and I was like, oh, I need to lose a few. I was like, I mostly look a little juicy, which is fine, but because I am. But I did. I was like, that was not my best angle on that one machine. I might have to figure out how I'm gonna crop that. but yeah, I mean, anyway, we all absolutely do have that. The fitness gives you. I think we gave Ed terrible body dysmorphia. He's been complaining about it recently. Like that's someone said that about the Order of Fire one time. Like, oh, what did you get? Oh, well, we learned about myths and we got body dysmorphia. That's what we got.
You should share the joke advertisement. Do you have body dysmorphia?
Would you like it? Would you like it? Because I think Clint said that. He's Clint. They both have nicknames. But Clint, the tattoo artist, I think he just said that at one point. He's like, oh yeah, we just got body dysmorphia. That's great. But he's like, I thought I was fine before. But anyway, now that we've
fine, but you can be better.
Exactly, you can be better. We believe in you. You have more potential. But
the real kind of body positivity. But we should probably close it out before we close 4 more times. So
yeah, exactly. But yeah, anyway, so a lot of these guys who we had in here tonight, actually, we haven't, I don't think, heard from before, but I do recognize their handles from their names or handles from our new Telegram group. So if you want to join us on that, like I said, there's conversations happening over there as well. And then they just bleed in. It's where the Order of Fire is. So the Order of Fire guys are there too. And so it's just kind of this bigger conversation. We just get to have more specific ones in the actual First Men. But anyway, guys, so thank you for watching, and stay solar.
Stay solar.